All right, good morning.
Morning. How you doing?
Good morning.
Good
Get some
morning.
cameras
Morning.
today. How's everybody doing? Everybody have a good weekend? All right. All right. I got the desk turned around today, so you guys have a different background instead of the same thing every time. All right. So today, so now this is your first rev up, I believe.
Yeah.
Welcome aboard, Shelby. Just days ago, so I'm glad to finally have you on board. So today we're going to be the offer to purchase, which is pretty important. It's a fun one to do. So we're going to go through that today. Hopefully you guys will all be doing this on your own very, very shortly. Obviously, when you guys get to a point where you're doing this, call me or call your whoever. If I'm not your mentor, call your mentor and do it one-on-one, right? It'll be super helpful, but this will obviously like kind of teach you some tips and tricks. But those first couple of times you're writing it up, just make sure that you have all your ducks in a row. So when you send that offer over, right, it looks good and you have a chance to get your offer accepted, right? So let me share my screen. We're not going to be in here a lot. The slides today are pretty much, I mean, we have 5 slides. The offer to purchase. I mean, when you think about the offer to purchase, what all is included with that? If you're, or I guess any of you guys can answer this. If you guys are going to send an offer over on a property, what all are you sending over?
The money.
The money.
The down payment.
Like that.
I've been out for a year, but yeah, you send a check to secure the offer.
Yeah. So what is that money called?
From the buyer. The money from the buyer.
What is it though?
Is that the earnest money?
You're talking about due diligence.
Yes, the due diligence. Sorry, I forgot.
So due diligence. We'll get to that. So yeah. So that's one of the things. What are some other things that come along with the actual offer to purchase?
I would assume the dates, the whole overall transaction, it's included in there as well.
All right, so all the details of the offer, right? The dates, and what different dates would be in an offer?
When you're expected to close, what the length of the due diligence period is.
Yeah, and maybe even when the offer expires, right? Right. There are times where if you've got a client looking at 4 or 5 different properties, maybe this offer ends today at 5, right? It's tough getting an offer when you only have till 5 p.m. to accept it, but that's the case sometimes, right? So you've got the dates on the offer that are important. Obviously, there's numbers on there, right? Right. What are the 3 numbers that are going to be on there? The most important numbers.
Licensing number.
Well, I mean, like monetary numbers.
Oh.
Definitely.
Sorry.
I mean, go ahead.
Definitely the purchase price. Any
price,
earnest money.
Earnest money.
And down payment would be my.
What was the last one?
Down payment.
The due diligence, right? Yeah. So those are some of the things that are going to be on there. We're going to go through a lot more stuff. What are some other things that come along with the offer to purchase besides the offer to purchase, right? So if you're emailing another agent today with an offer, besides the offer to purchase, what else is coming with that? Maria mentioned, Antoinette mentioned due diligence check. Usually you're waiting until that's accepted, right? And you're going to get that over within the first 24 hours. But what are some other documents that would come along with the offer?
The pre-approval or the lender information as well.
Pre-approval, of course, yeah. You're not typically going to send over an offer without a pre-approval, right? That's something that you guys want to have. So it's obviously very, very important that you guys have them pre-approved when they want to see a house, because houses may sit a little bit longer, but if you go see a house on Friday and they love it and they haven't got pre-approved and you wait until Monday for them to talk to the lender, guess what? The house might not be there anymore, right? So offer to purchase, the pre-approval. What are some other things you're going to send over? Come on, there's a couple other things.
I don't know, on the top of my head, you have to send all the information from your clients and like, I assume what we want included in the deal as well, if you want certain things included.
Yeah, some other things would be maybe the disclosures, right?
Yeah, well, yeah. I was gonna say
Yeah,
that.
so you're gonna want to send over the property disclosures, the oil, mineral, gas, lead-based paint, if there's that, right? Depending on your financing, right, you might send over an addendum for FHA or VA, right? So just so you guys know, if it's conventional, there's no other addendums needed, but if it's FHA or VA, you have to send over that addendum to be signed, letting the seller know that they are accepting an offer that's FHA or VA, right? So there's some other things that can be included with it. So when you send over that package, that offer, it's usually 4, 5, 6 attachments that you're sending to somebody. And what's something you would do when you send an offer to somebody?
You probably want to contact the selling agent and just kind of let them know.
Yeah. Let them know. Emailing is fine, but understand when you send an email, because this is probably the first time you've emailed that agent, right? Then you send 4, 5, 6 attachments. What happens sometimes? Goes to their spam, right? So there's times that I've gotten offers that I never got, and the agent's like, "Hey, why didn't you? I see you're under contract now." I'm like, "Well, I never got it. You never let me know," right? So, always obviously email the offer. You should be in contact with that agent regardless, right? Just let them know, like, "Hey, the showing went great. We love the house. Like, we're thinking about putting an offer. Like, what's important to your client?" Those are things you're gonna want to do the whole process. So you should be in contact with them. But then once you send an offer over, either A, call them, or B, text them and let them know that it should be in their email box. If they don't get it, to let you know, right? We skipped right over the affirmation. Money flows to me freely and easily from expected and unexpected sources. That's good. That's good. You always want money from unexpected sources, I guess. Yeah. Offer to purchase. We're going to talk about all these forms today. Lead-based paint, mineral oil, gas. I know I say this almost every week, but one of the most important things you guys are going to want to do is just read your documents, right? Everything's in SkySlope. Print it off. If you don't print it at home, go to Staples, Office Max, whatever stores are out there now. Read through these documents and practice signing them, right? Sign them in front of your girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, cousin, little sister, whatever. Practice signing this stuff. Practice and just read it so you can explain it to other people, because you don't want to be doing it for the first time. So it's very important that you guys know the paperwork. So we're going to look at some of this stuff. So easy question. When do we have a lead-based paint signed?
When the house was built before 1978.
All right. Yes. All right. So yeah, if your house is older than 78, have this signed, right? So so that's one of the addendums you're going to have, or one of the forms. You're also going to have, this is the FHA VA financing addendum, right? So if your buyer has either one of these with the offer to purchase, you need to be sending this over. And I'm not going to read through all this. You guys will need to do that. You guys will obviously check which one it is, but it's just letting the seller know that they're accepting an offer, and basically the consequences of doing that. The offer to purchase. So let me ask you guys a question. We know where this form is, right? This is the offer to purchase. we know where this form is. Where would I find the lead-based paint and the oil, mineral, gas, and the property disclosures? Right, because the offer to purchase we're gonna get that from SkySlope and fill it out, right, in forms. But where are we gonna get on a house? We're gonna put an offer on lead-based paint, oil, mineral, gas, property disclosures. Anybody? Maria, come on.
No, I don't know. I don't know if it's in the North Carolina Association website. I thought it was gonna be in SkySlope, but I'm mistaken then.
So the blank forms are in SkySlope, right? But if you're putting an offer on someone else's house, right, you're signing the forms that they've already signed. So
Then they should be attached to the MLS.
There we go. So let's take a quick peek in the MLS and find this. So this is. Does everyone know how to find a house in the MLS to find a property? Just you can play around it. This is the homepage. If you're in the MLS, if you just hover over search residential detailed and then paste an address in there, it's always going to populate something for you. It's always best to click on what it populates for you. So if I just press enter, it doesn't always find it correctly. Just start typing the address or paste something in there and then wait for it. Did you mean? And then click on that, right? So let's find the results. So this is actually a house one of my clients wants to put an offer on. So this will be helpful for me as well. It is a house in Concord, actually Charlotte, no one. Been on the market for not too long, 10 days, beautiful house, blah, blah, blah. The disclosures will be in here. Does anybody know where in here it would be? Has anybody looked at this before? All right, so let's just roll through a couple of things. You guys have, if you guys are going to put an offer on a house, you've already been on this page, right? Because you've scheduled a showing, right? So just simple stuff. To schedule a showing, you're right here, right? Look at this handsome fella. Just kidding. So schedule single showing, and then you're going to find a time that works for your client, right? And then you're going to click it and then go to the next page. If it's all blacked out here, that means they're not accepting showings for that day or time, right? So there's times where you'll see that. There's a lot of times where you'll see that it's blocked off. So it's 9 now. It might be blocked off till 11. That's because a lot of agents always put a 2-hour window, right? So they can give their clients a heads up, right? So just know that if you're going to schedule a showing and you look this morning and it's wide open, if you want to show your client at 2 o'clock and you wait till 1:30 to schedule that showing, you're not gonna be able to do it, right? Because it's usually a 2-hour window in advance. So just a little pro tip there. So yeah, scheduling a showing, super easy. Once you schedule a showing, you'll request the appointment and it will either say appointment to be scheduled or it'll say confirmed right away. If it's confirmed right away, what does that mean?
That it's either vacant or that it's there.
Yeah, so typically if I hit this request appointment right now, which I'm not going to do, if I hit that right now, it's good. I know this house, it's going to say confirmed right away, right? I mean, actually this one won't, because someone's living there. It'll say request received, and then within the next 30 minutes, an hour, I'll get an approval, right? Because that agent has to go to his client and say, hey, we've got a showing request for today at 1 o'clock. Does that work for you, right? If it's confirmed right away, auto, like, yes, you're confirmed right away, then it means that it's typically vacant or new build, obviously. So you kind of know when you're doing that. And then once you get that approval, that's when you're going to get an email confirming that the appointment was approved. And then it's going to get you the lockbox information, right? So you're going to say there's lockbox is on the front desk or front porch attached to the rocking chair, and this is the code, or it's going to say there's a Supra, right? So it's typically going to be one of the two of those. This particular house actually has a keypad on the door, right? Like a built-in the clients use to get in and out. and they gave that access, right? So it was pound in 4 numbers I had pressed and it unlocked it. So that's how you go through the showing process. So we'll get back out of that. To get back into this, so you guys have already seen this. You've already looked this over because you've already shown them a house. Now you want to put an offer on this house. To find those forms, you're going to look right here in documents. Good gracious. They've got a lot of stuff in here. All right. Good to know. Residential property disclosures, right? So what I would do is take this, right? Because the sellers have already signed this, right? The sellers have went through address, they went through and filled out everything that they know about the house. This particular house, they put no representation, which is fine. Right. So what I would do is I would go here and I would download this. And now that it is downloaded, I'm going to go into SkySlope and upload that form, right? And then we're going to add whoever your buyer is, you're going to add here, signatures, right? So when you're doing the offer to purchase in SkySlope, it's automatically going to know where all the initials and signatures go, right? Because it's a new form that you're populating. When you upload a form that's already filled out like this, you're going to have to, manually put in, add signature, drag it here, add initial, drag it here. So that's how you guys would do that. So I would repeat the same steps with the oil, mineral, gas and have these signed. The oil, mineral, gas is fun because your buyer actually initials all 6 of these. So you get to put initials in tiny little initials beside each one of these. If you have 2 clients, then there's a lot of signatures right here, right? So oil, mineral, gas, residential property. Let's see what else they have in here. Do I need floor plans, which is always very nice. You want to send those to your clients. Bylaws for the HOA. So they've done a really good job of attaching a lot of documents, right? So there's gonna be times you guys have questions about a listing. Check the documents first. A lot of times an agent has uploaded that stuff, so you don't have to bug them and ask them a lot of questions, right? So this is a good spot. So again, all that is in here, right? All right. So let's get back to the offer to purchase. Read all your contracts, obviously. All right, that's it. We don't need to do this anymore. Let's look at the offer to purchase. All right, first of all, we know your buyer's name, right? So you're gonna fill your buyer's name in here, right? Stacy Smith, we're gonna put her right here. Where do I get the buyer's name from? I mean, the seller's name from?
MLS, I would guess.
All right. Well, all right. I'm in the MLS. Seller's name is withheld. Where would I find the seller's name?
At the tax record.
All right. So easy thing to do when you're in this is the parcel ID is right here, right? So we can just click on this right here. Or we could go to click on real estate tax and enter the address in. But we don't have to do that because we're right here. So we're going to click on this and this is going to pull up everything we need. And this is going to pull up everything we need. And we're loading. There we go. Got a new little update. So we got Jeff and Mark. Right. So these are the 2 people that need to be on the offer to purchase, right? So you're going to copy these 2 names and then put them on the offer to purchase. Does that make sense? So that's where you're going to get the names from to go on there. All right, so we've got both names on there. Obviously, you guys are going to put the address. The stuff is in MLS. Try to fill this out as much as you can. This is actually a little bit older. It's been slightly updated. On the actual offer to purchase now, it says, is there a mobile home included on it? And you will click yes or no. And it's like right here, but everything else is pretty much the same. So you're going to put your amount in, due diligence amount, and Maria, how much are you supposed to put down for the due diligence?
You have to ask the client, then typically, I thought it was typically between 500 to 2,000 around that. But you have to discuss that with the client and what they want to do.
Right. So it is definitely all the client's discretion. Obviously, as an agent, right, you guys are the professional, they're going to ask you. The answer to that is there's no set amount, right? There's no set amount. Actually, North Carolina is one of the few states that does due diligence, right? So we got Bentley on here from Florida. They don't do due diligence in Florida, right? Yeah, so they don't have that down there. It's just earnest money. So it's a title company down there. So they do things a little bit differently down there. So up here we do due diligence. So that amount is up to you. I understand the due diligence money is basically the money that you're paying the seller to take their house off the market, right? And that money is a check that goes straight to the seller that they get to keep, right? So if you end up backing out because of basically whatever reason, then that money is gone, right? So it really depends. You know, it depends on a lot of different things, the amount, but you know, some people say, yeah, 500 to 1,000 on a $400,000 house. I mean, I would probably guess 2,500, right? This one, you know, has 1,000 written in here, but it really depends on how confident you feel in the house, and then obviously how many offers they have on the house, right? If they have 10 other offers on the house, you know, the due diligence is going to be the difference maker, right? Because let's just say hypothetically, this particular house was listed at 400, right? So now we're at 420. Right, the house is only going to appraise it so much. The price is typically going to go only so high. The difference in your offers will be the due diligence amount, right? And that is something the seller really wants to see, because that means it's money they get to keep. So, I mean, what about the earnest money? What's the set amount for that one?
I do not know the set amount. Is it a percentage?
The answer is there's no set amount. So again, this is kind of like the due diligence. You know, it is really, you know, what your client feels comfortable, because this is money that they're putting out of pocket up front, right? So this is the money that goes to the attorney. It's got a good faith money, and the attorney holds this money. Depending on who backs out and why, you know, there's a chance they can get this money back. So this isn't as risky as the due diligence. But again, you know, some people put more due diligence than earnest. As a seller, and so what do you think is preferred? If you're selling your house and you get an offer, which one of these is more important to you, the due diligence or the earnest money? I think you're on mute. Yes or no? You're on mute. Okay. So yeah, the answer is due diligence. So I mean, sellers want to see more due diligence, right? So that is obviously the preferred thing. So yeah, and this is the amount remaining after that's received. This is already going to be signed, and then you're going to have your, or not, it's not actually signed. Your buyers will sign here. North Carolina, we use attorneys. In South Carolina, so this is where the attorneys will go. Who picks out the attorney?
The buyer.
The buyer. Gotcha. Okay. And if your buyer says, I have no idea who the attorney should be, you would pick? Yeah. So yeah, I mean, so typically, yes. I mean, depending on where the house, I mean, I use McMichael and Gray a lot. That's who, you know, Realty One Group, we use them a lot. There's a lot of really good attorneys here in Charlotte. If you're up in Hickory and you don't know an attorney, just Google real estate attorney in Hickory and find someone that's close, right? Depending if you're in Salisbury, use one. You know, try to use one that's fairly close to everybody, so everyone's not having to drive an hour each direction on closing day, but this is where that goes. So this is the attorney. So when you get to this point, a lot of times buyers say, I have no idea who I want to use. Right? Ask your mentor who they recommend, and then that's going to go here. Due diligence period and settlement date. So these are big, right? So well, let's just start with the settlement date. How are you guys choosing the settlement date, Maria? So
How we choose it?
today's January 22nd, right?
Mhm.
So if you're writing an offer today, what are you putting as the settlement date?
Less than 30 days.
Less than 30 days?
Mhm.
Okay. Who else has got an answer?
I would say more than 30 days. I would say 30 days because you have to go through all the inspections, all the due diligence period.
Yeah, so so the thing is, it's gonna depend a lot, right? So if you're working with a client that's financing, right? Your lender is probably gonna say, hey, this is FHA. It's probably gonna take me 30 to 35 days to get them closed, right? And I'm gonna put that in based off of that. So today being January 22nd, at an earliest, I'm probably gonna put February 22nd, which is my birthday. And depending if I think it might be a slower process where we need a lot more inspections, yeah, I'd probably put it 35 days out. So maybe I'm putting February 28th, right? Yeah, typically with financing, you're typically going to go about 30 days. And there are lenders out there can get it done a little bit sooner, and maybe you can move the closing up earlier, but you want to give yourself time. When's a situation where you might do a much quicker close?
When it's a foreclosure? I'm just guessing.
Well, so financing we know takes X amount of time because it has to go through the lending process. But what if it's cash? Right? If it's cash, maybe they're not doing any appraisal because it's cash, and maybe they're not even doing an inspection because it's cash, right? So in those situations, you can close typically a little bit quicker. So you might put 2 to 3 weeks, right? So it just depends on the situation. And there's times where it's cash and you're still going to put 30 days because they want to go through the due diligence process and do a bunch of inspections to make sure. So so the answer to that is it really depends on your client, depends on their financing situation, it depends on the house, right? So what about the due diligence period? How long should that be? So again, let's just say we settled on February 28th for the settlement date because they've got an FHA loan. We need 25 or 35 days. Where would we put the due diligence period?
Couple weeks, a week.
A week?
I
I
would
would
say
say a
2
little bit
weeks.
more, but
So 1 week. So you're thinking January 29th?
no, I think
Anyone
that's
else?
too short.
That's too short, right? So typically you want to give, especially if it's financing, you want to give yourself at least 2 weeks, right? 10 to 14 days is kind of like a minimum that you need, right? On this one, if we're closing, February 28th, maybe we do it, I don't know, I mean, February 15th, right? Give yourself, a good 3 weeks to get everything done. Because you want to make sure that you've done your due diligence, your client hasn't put all this due diligence down and they don't have time to do the inspections to make sure that it's the house that they want to buy, right? So think about if you guys are putting $5,000 down on a $400,000 house due diligence, which wouldn't be crazy at all. And then you only give yourself 8 days due diligence time and they don't have time to review their inspection, right? They're kind of stuck, right? So those are things you want to make sure that you're looking at before you do that. So let's just go with February 15th, right? That's the date we've scheduled. So February 15th for due diligence and February 28th for close, right?
I have a question.
So yeah.
So on this example, the due diligence period ends 1 day before the settlement. Does that ever happen? Is that like an actual use case or?
Yeah, I hate this example. Yeah, you'll see it and you'll get offers like that. And a lot of times, I mean, Billy will probably agree with this as well, but a lot of times these are investment offers. If the due diligence period is ending right before the settlement, I mean, basically they can back out anytime they want, right? And that's if think about if you're on the selling side, if you're the seller or the listing agent, that's tough, right? Because you really, you really never know that you're actually going to close. And if I receive this offer, I would be calling the buyer's agent and say, what's going on with the due diligence period? We need to shorten this, right? Because we need to know at some point that we are moving on and my client can buy a house, and because my seller's got to go somewhere too, right? So no, I mean, this is not typical. I'm glad you caught that. But yes, if you get an offer this one day before close, then you need to do some homework and figure out why, right? So maybe if it's an investment property or something like that, maybe, but on a typical house, you want that shorter. And when you guys are putting in offers, understand that the shorter that due diligence period is, the more lucrative that offer looks, right? So think about if you were the listing agent on this and you saw this offer that was August 31st and you had 4 other offers, this would probably be the least lucrative offer, right? Even regardless of the monetary amounts, honestly. So February 15th is due diligence ends. February 28th is the closing date. When do we want to have inspections done by?
As soon as possible.
Yes,
Um,
that is the correct answer. Not February 15th. It's not when you want to have inspections done. You want to have inspections done ASAP. I put a house under contract on Saturday, and this morning I got an inspection request and a pest inspection request already this morning, right? So that the buyer's agent is on top of it, right? So even though they have 3 weeks due diligence period, they've immediately begun the process, right? And that's what you want to see. So that's something once you have an offer accepted as the buyer's agent, you need to start that process ASAP. What you will see sometimes is people that have a February 15th due diligence period that ends, and they schedule their inspection for February 13th. And the problem with that is you don't typically get the inspection report back that same day, right? Sometimes it's 2 or 3 days, right? And then when you get that inspection report back, and just a heads up, a lot of times those inspection reports are 30, 40, or 50 pages long, right? You need a hot minute to digest that, and your client needs to have time to digest that and figure out which things are important for them. How do you want to go about this? What things do you want to ask for repair wise? So you need to have a few days, right? So due diligence period, second you guys get that, put it on your Google Calendar, right? This is when it ends, and then work everything backwards from there, so you know that you're having everything done before then, right? Let's just say, hypothetically, February 15th is our deadline. We did our inspections in plenty of time. We did our inspections on the 8th. Everything came back, but now the lender is asking us to have an engineer come out. And an engineer can't come out until the 14th or the 15th. What would we do then?
We will have to ask the seller's agent to extend our due diligence period if possible.
Yep. So you'd want to extend due diligence, right? So don't just let that time lapse, because you're risking your client's due diligence money, right? So if you know that another inspection has to be done and it can't be done, and we're not going to have the results back in time, make sure that you're talking to that listing agent, which you guys should be doing every week, right? Keeping that relationship, keeping them in the loop of what's going on, and letting them know that, hey, we're probably going to have to extend this a couple of days, and this is why, right? The lender's requiring us to do have an engineer come out and inspect the deck. We have to do that, or we're not going to get approved financing. So we're going to ask to extend this until February 20th, right? And then make sure that you get that document signed. I'm not going to read all of this stuff to you. Personal property, this is where you would put in things that are at the house that you would like to have, that your client would like to have, right? So you're not always putting stuff in here, but sometimes you are. If it's furniture, things like that, it's typically going to be a bill of sale. So I just had that over this weekend. I think, yeah, it's came out twice in the last week. But yeah, so there's something here in the property that you want it to stay. Maybe it's the swing set outside, and you want it to stay. That's where you'd put this in the offer, right? A lot of times you'll see washer and dryer in here, right? And maybe you submit the offer to the client and they sign everything, they accept your price, but they counter back with the washer and dryer marked out because that's not included in the contract, right? So those are things there's things that you guys are going to negotiate that are not just price, right? Again, you guys should be reading all of this stuff. So if it's cash, it's the top one. If it's financing, you're clicking the second one. And then you'll put in what type of loan it is. FHA, VA, conventional, and all that stuff, right? So, and again, it says it right in here, if it's a VA or FHA, you need to have that addendum with the offer. I'm going to go through this part because this is important. If your client has a property they need to sell, you need to make sure that that's in here, right? Well, why is that important for a seller? To know if your buyer has a property that they're selling.
That's just more risk for the seller. Like that's another thing that may go wrong that would, inhibit the sale.
Yeah. So it's a little bit riskier, right? But it is pretty normal, right? Most people that are buying a house are also selling a house. So it's not something that if I see, I'm like, I'm not going to take this offer, but you do want to know, right? So in this example, they have does not need to sell another house. If they did, you would put does need to sell a house. You would put the address. And then, yes, it is under contract, which is most preferable, right? So if you get an offer and their house is under contract, that's good. So, I mean, preference, does not have to sell a house. The next preference would be does have to sell a house, but is already under contract, right? That would be the next preference. Is not under contract, is listed, will be listed for sell by owner, right? So those are the different options you can put on there. When you guys are working with clients and need to sell a house and they're trying to buy, I always try to advise them that you need to have your house on the market first, right? You need to have your house actively on the market, because when we put an offer in and I have to click, we're not even on the market yet, this offer is not as lucrative, right? Versus where, yes, we're not under contract yet, maybe, but we're at least on the market actively and we're doing showings now, right? So that's going to help you guys move the process along as well, right? So super helpful, because a lot of times buyers will say, hey, I just want to look at houses before I get pre-approved. That's backwards, right? Or I want to find a house, my dream house first. I'm going to put an offer on it, and then I'm going to list my house. It's you're not going to get your dream house because someone's not going to accept your house if it's not on the market, right? But B, you need to have your house on the market and know that your house is going to be under contract, know when that's going to close, so you can know when you can close on your house, right? Because most of the time you're not going to be able to close on your house or close on the house that you're buying until you close on the house that you're selling, right? So those need to happen pretty close together. Buyer has received a copy of the property disclosures and oil, mineral gas, and lead-based paint if it's older than that. So, yeah. So obviously you're sending this over. I always like to email them a copy of it before I send them the documents to sign, so they have a chance to read over the oil, mineral gas, and the property disclosures, right? So you want them to have that in hand first before you send them the signatures. Again, you guys can read through the different options here. But your clients, you want to make sure your clients have read the property disclosures, right? It would not look good if your clients have never signed an offer to purchase and they've never even seen the property disclosures, right? You're letting them buy a house blindly without looking at that stuff, right? So you want to make sure that you've protected yourself as well and your client. Buyer has owned the property for at least 1 year. And again, you're going to see that in the MLS. It's one of the things you have to put in there. Lead-based paint. HOA information. So if there's an HOA in there, then you're going to want to put this on the offer to purchase. That way that your client knows that they're paying $550 a year for HOAs or $350 a month, right? So you want to have this in here so that your client knows what they're paying monthly. And typically that stuff is going to be in the MLS. Does anybody know what this is? Agreement to pay buyer's expenses.
And they're paying your closing fees?
Yeah. I mean, what were you going to say?
I was gonna say that's just it might be in certain situations where the seller maybe knows the buyer and wants to help them out a bit, and move the transaction along. Or I guess if it's just a nice person, I don't know. But essentially the seller is helping the buyer.
Typically the buyer and seller are not gonna ever know each other typically, right? So this is you're gonna find this up. So to her question, yeah. So this is asking for closing cost, right? So this offer is saying, hey, we're offering you $420K for your house. We are going to close on September 1st. We have a VA loan. And we are going to ask for your client to contribute $2,500 towards our closing cost, right? I call this a seller credit, but basically this shows up as cash for the buyer, right? So this is less money they have to come to the table with, is what this is basically, right? Why would somebody need that? Why would you put this in there for your buyer? $2,500.
They may not have it on hand. Like they have the ability to get the approval for the loan, but they may not have all the cash that they need on hand right now.
Yeah. I mean, think for your buyer. Closing costs on a $400,000 house, it might be coming out of pocket $15,000 to $20,000, right? Right. They're paying, 3.5% down. They're paying, origination costs. They're paying the attorney fees, right? It adds up, right? So in this particular case, they're asking the seller to pay $2,500 towards their closing costs. And basically it just shows up as the credits, right? So the seller's not writing them a check for $2,500. It's just $2,500 less that they're going to get. So effectively, instead of this offer being $420, it's basically an offer of $417.5. Right? So it's still good, but that's how you have to present it. So, and it's not uncommon, right? It's very often that I see a seller credit in here, right? And if you guys are on the buying side, which is what we're doing, because we're doing the offer to purchase, you need to know, like, all right, I mean, you're paying the due diligence, right? That's a check you're giving right away. Which in this case was $1,000, right? You're paying $2,500 in earnest money. You're writing that check the first couple of days, going to the attorney, right? What are some other things you're going to have to pay for it during the process?
The inspection,
Yeah. How much is an inspection typically going to cost?
500.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good placeholder. Yes, I mean, 400, 500, 600, 700, depending on how big the house is, right? So let's just say 500 for the inspection. This would be for the appraisal, right?
Mhm.
Appraisal. Let's just put $500 for a placeholder there. In the case of the house I put on a property on Saturday, they're doing a pest inspection. They're doing a well inspection, right? So you can have more than just the home inspection, right? That's on your buyer that they pay out of pocket during this process, right? So when you're working with the client, you got to figure out what they're going to need, right? And how much they're going to need to close. So when you're talking with your lender's going to know how much money they have in the bank, and they're going to be talking to their client like, hey, if you put an offer on this house for 420, this is what you're going to need at close. You're going to need 15,000 to close. It looks like you have 14 grand in your bank account, right? So asking for a seller credit is going to help your clients, right? And sometimes you'll see this be $5,000 to $10,000, right? Not uncommon at all. As me being on the listing side, if I get an offer that has a seller credit, I don't look at it as a bad thing at all, right? For me, that's a client that knows exactly what they need to close, and they can close. They just need this credit, right? So if the house in this example was listed at 420, I've got some feedback from somebody. If this house was listed at 420, man, I think that's you. And they're asking for a $2,500 credit. I'm not going to counter their credit because I know that they need that money to close, right? So if a buyer is asking for that credit on the listing side, I know that they need that typically, right? So what I would do is I would counter the price, right? So we got the house listed in this example, and we're listed at 420, and it just came on the market, and my client wants 420. This buyer needs $2,500 credit. I would counter this back at 422.5, right? That way they still get their credit of 2,500. My client still gets 420, right? Does that make sense? Yes, no, kind of.
Yeah, and I was gonna ask you, just from your own experience, what's the most that you've seen as like a seller credit request?
Well, typically lenders are only going to let you do X amount. So, a lot of times that's 3.5%. So it's 400,000. It's just say 3%. So 12,000 might be the max the lender would let a credit happen on this. And that's just an example. But so typically only goes up so much. And then another reason besides financing that you would have a credit is sometimes you would change the seller closing costs during the repair addendum, right? So let's say you guys get the inspection report back and you need 5 things need to be fixed on it. The seller's like, I'm not fixing anything. I'll give you 5,000 off the house, right? So that wouldn't go on here because you've already been under contract at that point. But that's something that there's a different addendum that you would change the seller credit on there, right? So there's other reasons why you would maybe change that, but when you're putting the offer in originally, it is typically to help your buyer with their closing costs. And not to keep harping on this, but if you have a buyer that's like on the fence about buying, they're like, I don't have enough money down, I don't have 20 grand in my bank account. Like, look, let's get you approved. Let's get you approved. But B, we can put an offer in with a seller credit to help cover your closing costs, right? And when you tell a potential buyer that, they're like, oh wow, I didn't even know we could do that, right? So that's something that you need to bring up, and that's going to help get your clients off the fence sometimes, because you're the expert and you know how to help them out, and they're having to come to the table with less money down, right? Because that's when people are thinking about, like, should I just rent or should I buy a house? Usually the biggest concern for them is the money they have to come out of pocket to buy, right? Well, what if you're the hero and you get them a $12,000 credit right here, and they're only having to come to closing for a couple of $1,000s to buy a house, right? So there's a lot of times that this is going to come into play, right? So if you have questions when you're putting in an offer or you're talking to the lender and what they have, call me, call your mentor. But these are things that are going to help you get buyers and then get under contract. Home warranty. This is something that's up to you, up to your client. I like to put in a home warranty when I put in an offer. That means that the seller is going to purchase a home warranty up to X amount. In this case, we're saying that the seller is going to pay this. Yeah, the seller agrees to pay for a home warranty up to $675, right? So it's basically like another credit, but that's Home warranty is good. It covers the house for 1 full year, and it's typically, you know, roof to floor, covers everything, and even appliances. This is where you guys would put in this example, this is a VA loan. If you have any other addendums attached, you want to click it on here, right? All right. So you guys are the buyer's agent in this situation, right? You guys know your information, right? Where am I finding the listing agent's information?
MLS.
Yeah, so let's go back to the MLS. So we're on the MLS. If you scroll down to the bottom, we will find the listing agent is Pete. He works for Redfin. So we click on Pete's name. All the information that we need to fill out this is right here, right? So when I'm putting in an offer, I'm going to fill out all of this, right? When I receive an offer and the other agent has failed to do this, I'm going to send it back to them until they do it, right? Like this should be done, right? So don't be a lazy agent and leave all this stuff blank, right? This should be completed. It literally takes 2 minutes to do it. Everything you need, the agent's name, their license number, their phone number, email address, the company they work for, Redfin, the company's address right here, and then the firm license, right? So all that stuff is right in here, right? And we need to do this anyways because we need that agent's email address, right? So I'm going to copy this email address, open up a tab, and start typing an email and attaching all the stuff to it, right? So you have to have this information anyways, but make sure that you guys are filling this out. This last page is the acknowledgement of monies, meaning that they acknowledge that they received the due diligence amount and that the attorney acknowledges the earnest money amount. This doesn't get signed until those things have happened, right? So obviously they're not going to sign it now until they receive that check. But once your client sends them the due diligence amount, in this example for $1,000, and they've received it, you're going to want to have the listing agent click that they've signed it and sign it. And then you're also going to want to have the seller acknowledge that they received that check, right? And then also the attorney for the due diligence amount. And this is something you guys will need for closing. So just make sure that you stay on top of that and get this signed right away.
And they're two
Questions
different
about-
attorneys.
Say again?
It's two different attorneys. Like, they have two different attorneys.
No, it's just one. It's just this one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is an additional. This is in an odd situation where maybe the buyer had to extend for an additional month because of their house hadn't sold yet and they had to do a long extension, and the seller said, I'll accept your extension, but I want more earnest money or something. Right. But yeah. So typically just going to be this one. And then it's typically going to be the seller signing here and then the listing agent signing here. But again, this doesn't get signed until those have been received. So any questions about the offer to purchase? Yes, go ahead.
I think I received an update in a bulletin from the North Carolina Real Estate Commission about the offer to purchase, and they mentioned that there were some changes that they were having to the offer.
Yeah, so it does. Like I mentioned earlier, this one is actually out of date, but this one is just the one that I use for our trainings. But when you go into SkySlope, you'll see the updated form. So you always want to go over it. But yeah, the forms in SkySlope keeps them up to date, so you're not using old forms. For example, on page 1 right here, it says, is there a mobile home on the property? You have to click yes or no. And there's another one, is there additional storage or something. You have to click yes or no on that. But yeah, they get updated at least once a year, if not twice a year, with slightly different verbiage. But for the most part, it looks the same.
The same? Okay.
Yeah, but yeah.
That was my question.
All right.
Okay, yeah.
Um, was this helpful at all?
Yeah.
Was the MLS stuff helpful? Hopefully.
Oh, yes, because basically all the info that you need to fill the form with, personal data and everything is on the MLS, so you can go there.
Yep. So literally everything that you need is going to be in there for the most part. Again, you'd still want to call that listing agent and say, hey, like what's most important to your client? Like, if they were to accept an offer, like what's going to do that? And maybe that client's going to say, obviously it's just the money, or maybe they're going to say they want a quick close, or they're just worried about due diligence money, that, whatever the case may be. So you want to be talking to that agent. But as far as like what you need for the actual offer, everything is pretty much in the MLS. So pretty simple stuff.
And as brokers, we can trust what the MLS say or not.
You can go by what the MLS says, but yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, yeah,
Well, we are responsible, but
yeah,
it's more
and so is the listing agent responsible for the information that they put in there. And sometimes they'll put some little disclaimers in there, but yes, I mean, it should be accurate, but again, it's not always, and that's on the listing agent to make sure that this information is up to date. Awesome. Any other questions?
Brian, I have a question. Have you seen those 40-year listing agreements somewhere?
Yeah. Yes. I came across it once, and then I had someone else ask me about it recently as well. Are you in that situation right now?
No, I'm just asking because I was on a C class in Nevada. I'm also licensed in Nevada. And they were discussing it there, and they kind of mentioned that North Carolina had it too, but I just haven't run into that. So
yeah, I actually did. I ran into it. I went out and met with the client. I actually signed the listing while I was there, which is awesome. And then come to find out that the guy had signed basically a 40-year listing agreement, which was absurd, but it's very, very rare, and that person typically would know. So we unfortunately didn't get the listing and didn't have it. But yeah, there's and I forgot the company's name, but it's really the only company that does it around here. But they basically have you sign something, and they give you like an incentive. Like I think you made it like, here's $2,000. If you ever sell your house in the next 40 years, we have the rights to it. And that's not something you're going to see a lot, but yeah,
I said that the new law passed after July 31st last year, so it's not legal anymore, and it has to be filed a certain way. So I feel like we need to be looking for that if it's happening.
Oh, that's good.
In North Carolina.
Yeah, that's good to know. I haven't seen any new ones happen recently, but I didn't know that they'd outlawed that. It makes sense because it's very.
Yeah. It did pass in Congress. Actually, my broker in Nevada, she was in Congress fighting for this bill, and now it's not legal after July 31st of 2023. And the only way how it's legal if it's recorded, and they had about 6 or 7 requirements how it has to be recorded.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, good to know. Thanks for that info.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, we've hit our 10 o'clock. Appreciate everyone jumping on. This was a good one. I will see you guys. Actually, so we'll probably have a guest host next week. I am taking little man to Disney on Sunday. So we'll be in Disney World from Sunday to Thursday next week. So probably Allison or Logan or Andrew will fill in next Monday. But I will still send out the email as normal. So yeah. We'll go from there. All right, guys. Everyone have a good week. Feel free to call me in the meantime.
Have fun.
Thank you. Bye. And have a good trip.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.